Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody to our Committee of Adjustment meeting. If you do have a cell phone, I'll ask you to turn the ringer off. And if the phone does ring when you're here, please answer it when you're outside of earshot. Members of the public with us this evening, if you have an interest in any particular application and you'd like to receive written notice of tonight's decision, it's important to fill out the sign-up sheets which are located at the back of the room, just inside the doors to the right. So I'll now read the following notice. The notice of decisions for the applications we review this evening will only be forwarded to those who have either presented a written request for the decision or to those who have recorded their name and address on the forms provided at the back of the room. Furthermore, a formal request is necessary to be advised of a possible Ontario Land Tribunal hearing on these matters and in order to be allowed to make a presentation to the Ontario Land Tribunal, which is otherwise known as the OLT. And if you're following remotely and would like to be notified of the decision or any appeals that may result, please send an email to our Secretary-Treasurer, Lindsay Stamen. Her email address is lsthamann@cityofkingston.ca. Be sure to include your full name and address and the file number of the application. So I'd like to share with you the 5-part format that I'll be using as we navigate through the applications. Do you have the slide for that? There it does, okay. So in the first part, I'm going to start by introducing the applications. Now, if you're the applicant, please come up to the speakers area anywhere to my right and state your name and address for the record, and then volunteer any additional information you feel would be necessary. In the second step, I'll invite members of the committee to ask questions of either the applicant or staff. And then in the third step, I'll open the public portion of the meeting. Now, members of the public can also come up to the speaker's area to my right or even to my left. When I recognize you, I'll ask that you state your full name and address for the record, and then you'll have an opportunity to ask your question or make your comments. Now, each speaker will be allowed 5 minutes, and we will be recording the time. And during this time period, we will be recording your questions and your comments. So on that note, it's important that you not expect an immediate response to your questions or comments, because during this public portion, all we're doing is recording the questions and comments, and after I close the public portion of the meeting, will the questions and comments be addressed by the applicant, their agent, or staff. I'll be calling 3 times for public speakers before I close the public portion of the meeting. Then in the fourth step, I'll give the applicant or their agent an opportunity to add anything, or an opportunity to address those public comments. And then, once I close that portion of the meeting, we go into committee deliberation in the 5th step, and the committee will deliberate amongst ourselves. We no longer have any communication with staff or with the applicants, and we'll deliberate and ultimately make our decision. And then we rinse and we repeat. I use the same format for every application this evening. So that's about it. So I'll now call on Ian to confirm quorum. Ian.
Good afternoon, everyone, and through you, Mr. Chair, I can confirm we do indeed have quorum. Currently absent from the meeting are Somnath Sinha and Jordan Tekenos-Levy.
Okay, thanks very much for that. So I'll now call the meeting to order at 5:33 p.m. and refer you to the agenda. Committee members, can I call for a motion to approve the agenda as listed? So moved by David and seconded by Peter. Yes. Any discussion? No? All in favor, raise your physical hands, and that's unanimously carried. All right. Now we're looking at the confirmation of the minutes of the April 17th meeting be approved. Can I have I'm sure everybody has reviewed them, so can I call for a motion to approve the minutes? So moved by Dave and seconded by Ken. Any discussion? So all in favor, raise your physical hands, and that's unanimously carried by those who are here. And are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? No. I do have one. I was absent at the last meeting because of a pecuniary interest, the nature of which was I was the owner of a property in question. Okay, we have no delegations this evening, no requests for deferrals, and we have no returning deferred items. So the first piece of new business is for 1046 Gardeners Road. Lindsay, can I have you read this into the record, please?
Good evening, and through you, Mr. Chair, our first application tonight is for minor variance, file number D13-020-2023 for 1046 Gardeners Road.
Welcome.
Good evening, everybody. Through you, Mr. Chair. This is minor variance D13-020-2023 for 1046 Gardeners Road, the purpose of which is to establish a personal service shop, in this case a hair salon, as a permitted complementary use in the Business Park M1 zone. So here is the key map. The property is a condominium, and the specific unit is addressed as 1046 Gardeners. So here the request variance is to permit the personal service shop as a complementary use in accordance with section 16.2.2.5 of the zoning bylaw. Here's the site plan. I've highlighted the exact unit where the use is to occur. And here's some site photographs from a site visit from about a month ago. So all public notification was done in accordance with the Planning Act, and no public correspondence has been submitted to the file. And so it's staff recommendation that the requested variance maintains the general intent of the Kingston zoning bylaw and the official plan. The proposal is desirable for the appropriate development of the property, and the requested variance is minor in nature, so staff is recommending approval. Thanks.
Very good. Thanks very much for that, Ricardo. I understand we have the applicant and or their agent with us remotely, so I'd like you to identify yourself now and bring you into the meeting, and ask that you identify yourself by name and address for the record. Not in the meeting? No? Okay. Do you want to just go ahead with it?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't believe the applicant is present, so we're going to have to move forward from that.
Okay. Should we move to their, do committee members feel prepared to move through this, or should we just defer it until toward the end of the meeting?
I think we should move through it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right, we'll move through it. All right, so committee members, do you have any questions for staff? Yes, Peter.
Yeah, I'm looking at the neighboring units in there, and I guess my question is more or less for just for my own information. It appears that there are similar businesses in that strip mall than is what's being applied for here. Once you have one business in there, does it not become a permitted use for other similar businesses? Can I give you a couple of examples of what I'm talking about? Yeah, the one was the, there's a vision care. I'm not sure if that would be similar. And then there was another one was, where is it? Symmetry massage therapy. That's be personal care. There was a vacant one. Then you also have an Axiom Wellness Center, which I imagine would, to me, would suggest a similar case. So I guess what I'm saying, if you have three of them there now, does that not become a permitted use in that business park, or does everyone that wants to come in there have to apply for a minor variance to do so? That's my question. Thank you.
Absolutely, and through you, Mr. Chair, that those existing businesses that are there, that was contemplated through the application. So the applicant did submit a list of the existing businesses. Those three businesses that are there would have pre-existed the zoning bylaw, and any new businesses that would come in with the context of the current zoning bylaw, would be required to apply for a minor variance. Or if there are more than 25% of the gross floor area of the site is used for complementary uses, we might need to contemplate it through a zoning bylaw amendment.
Okay.
Okay, I guess I was just thinking that when you have the three of them there, that when the zoning bylaw was enacted, that it wouldn't have taken that into consideration, that, in this particular park, that's going to be a common use. I mean, I can see that I listed three of them, and I just, some others there I'm not quite sure of, but the three that I listed, to me, I would think that it would be like a precedent. That's what I would be, I guess, thinking about, But, okay, but thank you.
Yep.
Through the chair, if I may, I can provide a little further context there. So these policies of our official plan that allow for the establishment of complementary uses through a minor variance or a zoning bylaw amendment application were actually brought in fairly recently last year with the new Kingston zoning bylaw. Previously, our official plan permitted a range of primary and complementary uses within employment area designations, but didn't really provide a great means for which staff could monitor the amount of lands that were being used for those complementary uses. So that's the intent of these new provisions, is to provide us with a means by which to keep track of what percentage of our employment lands are being used for complementary uses in order to ensure those lands ultimately are maintained for their intended employment use. So in looking at this application, we determined that including the proposed hair salon use, there would be no more than 25% gross floor area of complementary uses on the subject property, including those existing uses that you mentioned. And that's why it meets the criteria of the official plan to be considered by way of minor variance. I hope that provides some clarity. So it's something that's specifically, it's a framework essentially that's specifically laid out in our official plan to allow us to introduce complementary uses by minor variance. But each of the uses, and in this case, this particular use that's proposed, is very specifically only being permitted in this unit, so that if someone were to want to explore introducing a different complementary use or a very similar one in a different unit in the complex on the property, they would have to come back to us to determine the appropriate path forward to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I guess the question that I guess, again, in my mind, again, I've been familiar with the building code and classification of various occupancies, and this would be, pretty much all of them would fit business and personal services, maybe commercial. One possibly could be considered maybe light industrial or something, but again, if it's kind of business, and why would the bylaw, I guess, again, looking for the rationale, why the bylaw would not sort of categorize the use of that building in accordance with the building code, like business and personal services, which would certainly make it, I guess, a lot more latitude, I guess, for somebody coming in there.
Sure.
For
Megan?
sure, through the chair. So the classification of uses under the building code and under the zoning bylaw would not be one and the same. The way a certain use is treated under our zoning bylaw and where it's permitted would not necessarily align with how that use is treated under the building code. So any requirements for this particular use under the building code would be addressed through the building permit stage, should they be proposing any interior alterations to accommodate this use.
And just one thing I'd like to sort of add into that, the word precedence was brought up, and it's correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding that a decision that's made, say at this committee level, does not set a precedence for any other property in the vicinity, that all of those properties would have to apply for a variance in their own respect. Okay. Any more questions? Ken, did you have a question? No?
I have a question with respect to parking. Because this unit would comply with the 25% standard, Does that mean that you do not do a parking analysis, or is there an analysis done at the occupancy permit stage?
Through you, Mr. Chair, so this zone in the business park zone, there are no parking minimums outside of residential zones in the city of Kingston in the new zoning bylaw 2262. In this case, the site went through site plan control some years ago. So parking wasn't necessarily something that was contemplated through this minor variance, as those kind of technical details were already present on site, and that the interior of the property would just be, interior of the building would just be upfitted for the new tenant.
So no parking concerns, given that a personal service use is a much higher generator than uses that would normally be there. Am I correct in that?
Through Mr. Chair, that is correct. So with the removal of parking minimums from non-residential uses in the zoning bylaw, it is on the applicant to, or the owner of those properties, to contemplate how much parking is appropriate for those uses. In this instance, in some instances, staff might review proposed amounts of parking in non-residential uses. In this instance, it wasn't something that that raised any alarms.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions from committee members? No? Okay, so now I'll open the public portion of the meeting. Do we have anybody with us in the building or online wishing to speak to the application for 1046 Gardeners Road? Please let yourself be known.
And just as a reminder for any of us, any of the members joining virtually, you will find a yellow button at the bottom with a little hand. You'll click that and we'll be able to know that you'd like to speak to the item.
Okay, I'll make my second call. Is anybody with us this evening to speak to the application for 1046 Gardeners Road? Please raise your physical hand or your virtual hand in Zoom. And my third and final call, is anybody with us this evening wishing to speak to the application for 1046 Gardeners Road? Raise your physical or virtual hand. And I see none, so I'll close the public portion of the meeting and come back to the committee for a motion. Somebody want to move it? So moved by Ken and seconded by Aniz. Discussion? Any discussion? No? So all in favor, raise your physical hands, and that is unanimously carried. Thank you. Okay, next application we have is number B, which is for minor variance 2043 Sydenham Road. Lindsay, can I have you read this into the record, please?
Through you, Mr. Chair, up next is an application for minor variance, file number D13-018-2023 for 2043 Sydenham Road.
Good evening, through you, Mr. Chair. This is a minor variance application at 2043 Sydenham Road. The purpose and effect of the minor variance application is to request relief from the requirement regarding the maximum accessory building height to construct a 139.84 square meter accessory building within the rear yard of the property. The proposed accessory building complies with all minimum interior and rear setbacks and lot area zoning provisions. The minor variance being applied for right now is the maximum height of an accessory building. The requirement is 4.6 meters, the proposed is 6.8 meters, and the variance requested is 2.2 meters. So the property is located just north of the 401 along Sydenham Road on the west side and just south of Unity Road. So this is the site plan and location of the proposed accessory building. It's important to note the recommended conditions showed that the interior side yard setback will be 2 meters, and the overall size of the accessory building for lot coverage would be 140 square meters. So this is the elevations of the proposed accessory building on all sides of the property. It's important to note a few reasons why the requested height variance is appropriate. It will accommodate Heritage Planning's request for a gable roof style that matches the existing roof style of the designated single detached dwelling on the property. The gable roof style will also allow the owner of the property to install southwest-facing solar panels on the roof of the accessory building, which aligns with council's climate goals. The requested variance maintains the general intent and proposed of both the City of Kingston official plan and zoning bylaw 2262. The proposal is desirable for the appropriate development of the use of the land, building, or structure of the requested variance is minor in nature. As such, the proposed application meets all 4 tests, subsection 45(1) of the Planning Act. Approval of this application will permit the construction of a rear yard accessory building. At this time, no public comments were received, and I'm available for questions if you need anything. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Jason. Okay, do we have members, the applicant or their agent with us this evening? Yes, good evening.
I'm the applicant.
Yes, welcome. And can you please identify yourself by name and address?
Sure, my name is Vasily Katrumpis, and I live at 2043 Sydenham Road.
Great, thank you and welcome. Is there anything further you wish to add to the application we have?
No, I don't think so. I think Jason summed it up with the fact that we're looking to build a garage, and we do have a height restriction that we'd like to circumvent with a minor variance.
Okay.
And yeah, I think the primary need for this height is twofold. One is that we're looking to be able to put a car lift in, so a lot of the height is taken up of the 4.6 meters, and then to accommodate the matching of the gable and pitches of the existing dwelling, we're looking at that extension. And similarly, as you mentioned, the solar panels, I think with the pitch too, it lends itself to the appropriate angle for the maximum sun retainage without any kind of major structural work to the roof.
Okay, thanks very much for that. So committee members, do you have any questions for the applicant or staff? Yep, Peter?
Just one. I believe when I was there, it appeared at the north end of the property, north of the dwelling unit, that there was like a container. You know, is that correct?
Yes, currently there's a sea container there with some stuff stored because we really don't have anywhere to store anything. So, hence looking to build the garage to be able to start storing our stuff. The home doesn't really have much of a basement, so really there are no buildings or any kind of spaces for any type of storage that would lend itself to what you would typically put in your garage.
Okay, so can I assume then that maybe not assume, maybe you could confirm, that will that container remain in place or will it be removed? So I'm looking at possible calculation of lot coverage. That container would, if it was left there, would be considered, I believe, as to be adding to lot coverage. So is it going to be left there or removed?
So the container will not be left where it is currently. It likely will be moved to the back of the property for further kind of storage. But I will endeavor to meet any of the requirements that are required to maintain that on the property.
Okay. I guess it's just not shown on the site plan, and that's why I raised that question. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions? Dave?
Just following up on Peter's question, is there a definition in the bylaw of coverage? Would a container be considered a structure with no foundation?
Thank you through you, Chair. The RUR zone for the accessory building has a 10% lot coverage. The property is about 0.5 hectares, so in square meters, the owner could continue on adding accessory buildings. However, they cannot exceed 4.6 meters in height. However, this one has a recommended condition for 140 square meters max at 6.8 meters. So they could build more accessory buildings throughout the property, and when I was doing the report, it looked around 400 square meters max for the property.
It's probably not considered as a structure anyway, so again, a non-issue. Am I right in that?
So the sea container is considered a structure, so it would count towards the lot coverage. However, planning services has no concerns with getting close to around 400 square meters for the property's max.
Okay, good. Any other questions? Okay, I'll open up the public portion of the meeting. Do we have any members of the public with us this evening, online or in-house, who wish to speak to the application for 2043 Sydenham Road? Please raise your physical or virtual hands. And we have nobody online, so I'll just call a second time. Is anybody in the room willing to speak to the application for 2043 Sydenham Road? Raise your hand. I see some shaking heads no, so I'll close the public portion of the meeting and come back to the committee for a motion. So moved by David and seconded by Peter. And any discussion? All in favor, raise your physical hands. And that's unanimously carried. Thank you. Okay, our next application is for 246 Adelaide Street. Lindsay, can I have you read this into the record, please?
Through you, Mr. Chair, our last application for tonight is an application for minor variance and permission, file number D13-009-2023 at 246 Adelaide Street.
Thank you, and through the chair, this is an application for minor variance and permission at 246 Adelaide Street. The purpose of the permission application is to renovate the legal non-conforming apartment building containing 15 units to create a legal 16th dwelling unit. The minor variance is requested to reduce the number of required visitor and car share parking spaces. Next slide, please. The subject property is located on the south side of Adelaide Street, just east of Alfred Street and the Memorial Center. Next slide, please. The property is currently zoned UR5, which permits single detached houses and duplexes, but not apartment buildings. The existing 15-unit apartment building was constructed in approximately 1967 and is a legal non-conforming use. The proposal to renovate the existing building to create a legal 16th dwelling unit requires permission under the Planning Act. Next slide, please. Additionally, the proposal requires 2 variances. One variance is requested for relief from 1 car share parking space, and a second variance is requested for relief from 1 visitor parking space. Next slide, please. Shown here is the conceptual site plan drawing, which is also included as an exhibit of the report and includes 9 standard parking spaces, 1 type A accessible parking space, a visitor parking space, an improved vehicle turnaround area, a long-term bike parking space, and a relocated waste storage area. No changes are proposed to entrances or to landscaped open space. Next slide, please. The applicant has also provided floor plans which detail the location of the new 1-bedroom unit in the basement and also shows the unit in relation to stairwells and entrances and exits. No changes are proposed to the exterior of the building to accommodate the development. Next slide, please. 1 sign was posted on the property, 62 notices were mailed out, and an ad was placed in the Kingston Whig Standard. No comments have been received regarding the application. Next slide, please. Approval of this application will permit the renovation of the existing apartment building to create a legal 16th dwelling unit. Staff are supportive of the proposal as it would increase the number of dwelling units on the property while bringing the parking situation closer to compliance with the Kingston zoning bylaw. I leave this in your hands and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Sarah, and welcome. Sorry, I missed that at the beginning. Do we have the applicant or their agent with us today? Right, if you'd like to come up to any one of these speakers and tap the mic button and just state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Renee Mass.
Renee. Okay, welcome. Anything further you want to add to the application?
Yes, the unit is already built. We purchased the building September last year, and the existing unit is already there. It's a one-bedroom unit. Actually, the previous owner took the laundry room, part of the laundry room, and put a one-bedroom unit in it. There's still laundry, but it's more like a hallway with laundry.
Okay, okay, very good. Well, thanks for that. All right, committee members, do you have any questions for the applicant? I see Ken, yeah.
Given, Mr. Mass, given that the unit exists, what compels you to apply for the variance? Do you need a building permit?
Yes, we did apply for a building permit, and then obviously we're now in the zoning section, so we're asking for minor variance.
Yeah, in other words, legalize the unit from a building code point of view. This is your objective.
Yes, we're looking to legalize this unit.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Peter?
I believe, I'm sorry, I'm getting way up high, okay. I believe that you mentioned that the laundry services are now in the hallway. Is it the hallway or the stairway?
Let me rephrase that. There's still existing laundry services, but it's more of a door that looks like a hallway going to the utility room. So it still exists. It's not in the hallway. It's shrunken in size, basically. So it's perhaps 15 feet long and 8 feet wide.
But it's not part of the exit stairway?
No, it is not.
And again, the unit itself, does it exit into that hallway or exit into that stairway?
The unit is on the side, and there's a separate door for the laundry.
Okay.
That's good.
Good, okay. Any other questions? Inez?
So will this laundry be permitted as per the building bylaw?
Yes, the laundry facility is already there.
It is permitted.
It's existing.
Where it is located currently?
Yes, it's existing and it's being used as we speak.
Okay, good. Any other questions? Okay, so I'll open the public portion of the meeting, and do we have any members of the public with us here or online who wish to speak to the application for 246 Adelaide Street? And we have nobody in the public gallery and nobody in the room. So I'll close the public portion of the meeting and come back to the committee for a motion. Moved by Inez and seconded by Ken. Any discussion? So all in favor, raise your physical hands, and that's unanimously carried. Thank you. All right, so moving along. We have no motions, there are no notices of motions, no other business. We've had no correspondence today, and the date of the next meeting is Monday, June 19th at 5:30 p.m. So can I call for a motion to adjourn? So moved by Peter and seconded by Inez. All in favor, raise your physical hand, and that's unanimously carried. Meeting adjourned at 6:03 p.m. Okay, we'll just stick around and sign some papers.